First Contact Follies. The crystalline surface of Commander Axura's command center refracted starlight in dazzling patterns as she studied the holographic display before her. Her massive form, nearly the size of a small Earth skyscraper, shifted slightly, causing rainbows to dance across the walls of the Valaxian survey vessel. Curious, she hummed, the sound resonating through her crystalline body at frequencies that would have shattered lesser materials. Sector Scout T-789 magnified that anomalous reading from the third planet. The junior officer, a mere 100 meters tall, adjusted the scan parameters. The holographic representation of Earth expanded, showing unusual energy signatures crisscrossing its surface. Commander, I believe these readings indicate artificial structures, T-789 reported, his crystalline fragments vibrating with uncertainty. But they're microscopic by our standards. Axura's laughter created a cascade of harmonic frequencies. Impossible. No sapient species could evolve at such a scale. These must be natural formations, perhaps some form of mineral growth. She paused, studying the data more closely. Although these patterns are remarkably regular. The Valaxians had encountered many worlds in their centuries of exploration, but never had they seen a planet quite like this. Their own civilization had evolved in the high-pressure depths of gas giant cores, where crystal-based life could grow to magnificent proportions. Their current forms were the result of millions of years of evolution, leading to beings that measured their height in hundreds of meters. Launch a detailed planetary survey, Axura commanded. Focus on silicon deposits. This world could serve as an excellent breeding ground for our next generation. She didn't even consider the possibility that the tiny structures they were detecting might be cities, or that the minuscule energy signatures might be evidence of a technological civilization. Deep beneath her, Earth continued its quiet rotation, its inhabitants going about their daily lives, completely unaware of the crystalline giants conducting their survey from orbit. In New York, Tokyo, London, and countless other cities, humans worked, played, and lived, their technologies and achievements invisible to beings who measured civilization by physical size alone. The first hint that something was amiss came when one of the survey probes encountered an artificial satellite. The probe, designed to analyze mineral compositions, attempted to catalog the satellite as an unusual metallic formation. The satellite's automated defensive systems, however, had other ideas. Commander, T-789's crystalline form vibrated with alarm. Survey Probe 3 has been disabled. Axura's structure shifted in surprise. Disabled. But what? A micrometeorite? No, Commander. It appears to have been deliberately destroyed by some kind of directed energy weapon. For the first time in her long existence, Axura felt something akin to uncertainty ripple through her crystalline matrix. She had dismissed the regular patterns on the planet's surface. She had ignored the energy signatures as natural phenomena. But this was different. Magnify the debris field, she ordered, her tone carrying harmonics of concern. The holographic display zoomed in on the remains of their probe, and more importantly, on the satellite that had destroyed it. The satellite was tiny by Valaxian standards, barely larger than a crystal fragment, but its design was unmistakably artificial. Impossible, Axura whispered, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that reflected her disbelief. These energy readings, the metallurgical composition, this is advanced technology. But how could anything so small? Her thoughts were interrupted by a transmission. Not from her fleet, but from the planet below. The signal was perfectly calibrated to resonate with Valaxian crystalline communication frequencies, something that should have been beyond the capabilities of any primitive species. Greetings, visitors, the transmission began, somehow managing to create perfect crystalline harmonics despite its origin. We notice you're conducting a survey of our planet. While we appreciate scientific curiosity, it's customary to announce oneself before beginning such studies. Perhaps we should talk. Axura's entire form vibrated with shock, creating a cascade of rainbow refractions throughout the command center. The beings below weren't just sapient. They had analyzed Valaxian communication methods and replicated them perfectly, all while operating at a scale her people had deemed impossible for intelligent life. "Open a channel," she commanded, her voice carrying harmonics of both curiosity and concern. She had come to this world thinking it a simple resource to be harvested. Now she faced the dawning realization that she might have made a grave error in judgment, one that could have profound implications for her people's understanding of life itself. The humans, it seemed, were about to teach the Valaxians a lesson about making assumptions based on size. And as Axera prepared to respond to their message, she couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these microscopic beings had in store. The silicon mistake. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her holographic presentation showing the crystalline beings in orbit. At over 300 meters tall, a single Valaxian could overshadow most buildings in downtown Singapore. "Their biology is fascinating," she explained, manipulating the 3D model. "They're silicon-based life forms that evolved under extreme pressure. Their crystalline structure allows them to process information through light refraction. Essentially, their entire bodies are both organic and computer." General Martinez leaned forward, his weathered face reflecting the hologram's glow. "That's all very interesting, Doctor, but what about their intentions? They've been scanning our silicon deposits for the past 48 hours. Sarah's expression turned grave. "That's the concerning part. Based on their communication patterns and scan focuses, we believe they see Earth as a potential breeding ground. Silicon deposits aren't just resources to them, they're nurseries." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for first contact, but no one had anticipated meeting aliens who might literally see them as smaller than insects. "They still haven't responded to our initial contact," Admiral Wong added, scrolling through recent reports. "Their scans are becoming more intensive. We need to decide on a course of action." In orbit, Commander Axera was facing her own crisis. The impossible transmission from the surface had thrown her entire mission into chaos. Her crystalline form pulsed with agitation as she reviewed the data again. "These readings cannot be correct," she insisted, though doubt crept into her harmonic frequencies. "A species that small cannot possess this level of technology. It defies all known laws of development." Science Officer K-104 adjusted the scanning parameters again. "Commander, I've confirmed the findings. The surface is covered in artificial structures, and the energy signatures. They're consistent with a Type 1 civilization, possibly approaching Type 2. Before Axera could respond, alarms resonated throughout the ship. The humans had apparently grown tired of waiting for a response. On Earth, Sarah Chen watched as her team activated the quantum interference grid. Originally designed as a planetary defense system against asteroids, the QIG was now being repurposed for a very different threat. "Grid activated," her assistant reported, targeting their scanning beams. Sarah nodded. "Begin Phase 1. Let's show our visitors why making assumptions can be dangerous." In orbit, the Valaxian ships suddenly found their scanning systems failing. More than failing. The readings they were getting back made no sense. Every silicon deposit they detected seemed to shift location the moment they tried to focus on it. Impossible. Axera's crystalline form vibrated with frustration. "How are they interfering with our scans? The energy required to disrupt crystalline quantum sensors would be..." She stopped as realization dawned. The energy requirements would indeed be massive. Unless you understood exactly how crystalline quantum sensors worked and could target their specific vulnerabilities. "They've been studying us," she whispered, her harmonics carrying tones of both admiration and fear. "While we dismissed them as microscopic anomalies, they've been analyzing our technology, finding our weaknesses." The situation deteriorated further when the Valaxians attempted to launch collection probes. Each probe, designed to gather silicon samples, found itself caught in a web of quantum-entangled fields that completely disrupted their crystalline control systems. On Earth, Sarah allowed herself a small smile as the defense grid performed exactly as designed. "Send another transmission," she ordered. "Same frequency as before." The message that reached the Valaxian fleet was elegantly simple. Perhaps now would be a good time for that talk. Axera stared at the message, her crystalline matrix processing its implications. These tiny beings hadn't just developed advanced technology. They'd developed technology specifically capable of countering Valaxian systems. While her people had been dismissing them as primitive based on size, they had been preparing for this exact encounter. "Open a channel," she commanded, her harmonics carrying new tones of respect. "It seems we have much to learn about the nature of intelligence and the dangers of underestimating those different from ourselves." As communications were established between the two species, both sides prepared for negotiations that would reshape their understanding of life in the universe. The Valaxians were about to learn that true advancement wasn't measured in meters, and the humans were ready to prove that being small had its own unique advantages. Microscopic mayhem. The first diplomatic meeting between humans and Valaxians took place in an unlikely setting: virtual space. While the crystalline giants remained in orbit, their consciousness projected into a shared digital realm where size held no meaning. Commander Axera's avatar manifested as a shimmering crystalline structure, facing the human delegation led by Dr. Chen and General Martinez. Here, in this digital space, they could interact as equals, a concept that still sent harmonic tremors through Axera's actual form. "Your quantum interface technology is remarkable," Axera admitted, her virtual form refracting light in patterns of grudging respect. "We had not thought beings of your scale capable of such precision." Dr. Chen's avatar smiled. "Commander, if you'll permit me a small demonstration." She gestured, and the virtual space filled with a three-dimensional representation of a human neural network alongside a Valaxian crystalline matrix. Notice the similarities in processing patterns. The comparison was striking. Though operating at vastly different scales, both systems showed similar complexity in their information processing. The Valaxian way of using light refraction through crystalline structures wasn't so different from human neural electrical impulses, just on a much larger scale. "Fascinating," Science Officer K-104's avatar chimed in, creating harmonics of scientific curiosity. "But surely your size limits your ability to manipulate the physical world." General Martinez stepped forward, his avatar projecting an air of confident amusement. "Perhaps another demonstration is in order." He nodded to Dr. Chen, who initiated a new protocol. In orbit, the Valaxian ships suddenly detected thousands of tiny objects approaching their hulls. Panic rippled through the crystalline crews until they realized what they were seeing. Swarms of human nanobots, each smaller than a dust particle by Valaxian standards. The nanobots arranged themselves into complex patterns on the ship's crystalline surfaces, creating messages in Valaxian harmonic script. The level of precision required to manipulate matter at this scale, to write directly on Valaxian biocrystal, was beyond anything they had thought possible. "You see," Dr. Chen explained in the virtual space, "what we lack in size, we make up for in precision. Your civilization masters the macro scale. We've mastered the micro. Both approaches have their advantages." Axera's avatar flickered with realization. "The satellite that destroyed our probe. You didn't use brute force. You targeted specific crystal lattice points with precision strikes." "Exactly," General Martinez confirmed. "We analyzed your crystalline structure and calculated exactly how much energy was needed. No more, no less. Size isn't everything. Sometimes it's about knowing exactly where to apply the pressure." The implication stunned the Valaxian command. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that bigger meant more advanced, more capable. Yet here was a species that had taken the opposite approach, developing technologies that operated at scales so small they had initially dismissed them as insignificant. "But what of defense?" Axera challenged. Surely your small size makes you vulnerable to larger threats. Dr. Chen's avatar produced another simulation. Let me show you our planetary defense grid. The display showed layers of quantum fields, nanobot swarms, and energy barriers that could be precisely tuned to any threat, including crystalline beings hundreds of meters tall. We've had to be creative, she explained. When you're small, you learn to use your environment to your advantage. Every dust particle becomes a potential tool, every molecular interaction a possible weapon or shield. The Valaxians watched in growing amazement as the humans demonstrated technology after technology that operated at the quantum scale. Their initial dismissal of humanity as primitive now seemed not just wrong, but dangerously naive. Perhaps, Axera suggested, her avatar's harmonics carrying tones of diplomatic possibility. We have an opportunity here. Our peoples clearly have much to learn from each other. The human delegation exchanged glances. This was the opening they had hoped for, a chance to turn potential conflict into cooperation. After all, in a universe full of unknown threats, allies of any size could prove valuable. We agree, Dr. Chen responded, though we would appreciate it if you could postpone your plans to use Earth as a breeding ground. We're rather attached to our silicon deposits. For the first time in the encounter, Axera's avatar produced harmonics of amusement. I believe we can come to an arrangement. After all, any species that can write poetry on our hull using particles smaller than our sensor resolution clearly deserves respect, regardless of their size. Crystal clear diplomacy. The United Earth Council chamber buzzed with activity as holographic displays showed the ongoing integration of human and Valaxian technologies. After 3 months of diplomatic exchanges, both species had begun to realize the incredible potential of combining their different approaches to science and engineering. Watch this, Dr. Chen announced to the assembled delegates, activating a demonstration pod. Within seconds, a swarm of human nanobots began interacting with a sample of Valaxian crystal, creating structures that were neither purely human nor purely Valaxian in design. By combining our nanotech with Valaxian crystalline matrices, we've created quantum computing nodes that operate at efficiencies neither of our species could achieve alone, she explained. The Valaxians provide the perfect crystalline structure, while our nanobots maintain and optimize it at the molecular level. In orbit, Commander Axera observed similar breakthroughs from the Valaxian perspective. Her ship's sensors, once calibrated only for macro-scale observations, now incorporated human-designed quantum sensors that could detect and analyze phenomena at both cosmic and subatomic scales. Remarkable, she hummed, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement as she reviewed the latest test results. Their ability to manipulate matter at the quantum level perfectly complements our macro-scale engineering. The breakthrough that truly cemented the partnership came unexpectedly during a joint research project. A team of human scientists, led by Dr. James Wong, had been studying the process by which Valaxians incorporated silicon into their crystalline structure during reproduction. Commander, Dr. Wong's voice came through the quantum comm channel, carrying an urgency that made Axera's crystal matrix quiver. We've made a discovery about your species' silicon integration process that you need to see. The humans had identified why the Valaxians needed such massive silicon deposits for reproduction. Their natural process was incredibly inefficient, wasting nearly 90% of the raw materials. But more importantly, they had developed a solution. In the virtual conference space, Dr. Wong demonstrated their findings. Using our nanotech assembly processes, we can help you optimize your silicon integration to nearly 95% efficiency. You wouldn't need massive silicon deposits anymore. You could reproduce using a fraction of the resources. The implications hit Axera like a gravitational wave. For generations, her species had been limited by their resource needs, forcing them to seek out and sometimes compete for silicon-rich worlds. This human innovation could transform Valaxian society. But why? Axera's avatar created harmonics of confusion. Why would you share this technology with us? We nearly tried to claim your world for our own use. Dr. Chen's avatar stepped forward. Because that's what humans do. We solve problems. We innovate. And we've learned through our own history that sharing knowledge benefits everyone. The diplomatic discussions that followed opened new avenues of cooperation. The Valaxians shared their expertise in macro-scale engineering, helping humans design and build structures that could withstand the most extreme cosmic conditions. In return, humanity helped the Valaxians refine their technologies at the microscopic level, leading to advancements neither species had thought possible. Consider this. General Martinez addressed a joint human-Valaxian conference. Our species evolved to handle different scales of reality. Apart, we each see only part of the picture. Together, we can understand and manipulate the universe from the quantum level to the cosmic scale. The truth of his words was demonstrated in the joint projects that followed. Human nanobots maintained and enhanced Valaxian crystal ships, while Valaxian macro-engineering protected human settlements from cosmic threats. The combination of human precision and Valaxian scale created technologies that caught the attention of other spacefaring races. It seems, Axera noted during a private conversation with Dr. Chen, that we have created something unique in the galaxy, a partnership that proves the old saying wrong. Size truly doesn't matter. It's how you use what you have that counts. Dr. Chen smiled at the commander's use of the human idiom. Indeed. And speaking of which, our teams have finished the preliminary designs for the Joint Defense System. Would you like to see how we plan to combine your crystalline technology with our quantum field generators? As they reviewed the plans, both leaders reflected on how close they had come to conflict and how much both species had gained by choosing cooperation instead. The universe, they had learned, was big enough for beings of all sizes, especially when they worked together. Small wonders. 5 years after first contact, Earth's orbit had become a testament to human-Valaxian cooperation. Massive crystalline structures floated alongside swarms of human microsatellites, creating a defense and research network that protected both species' interests. But today's gathering wasn't about defense. It was about celebration. The first successful human-assisted Valaxian reproduction cycle had just been completed, using less than 1/10 of the silicon traditionally required. In the virtual conference space, representatives from both species gathered to witness the emergence of the new generation. Hard to believe. Dr. Chen mused to Commander Axera, watching the crystalline infants form with the help of human nanobots, that we once thought we'd be at war over silicon deposits. Axera's avatar shimmered with harmonics of amusement and pride. Indeed, though I must admit, when I first saw your world, I never imagined we'd be here. My people thought size was everything. Now we know better. The breakthrough had changed everything. Valaxian ships no longer needed to search for silicon-rich worlds to reproduce. Instead, they could create new crystals almost anywhere, thanks to human precision technology. This discovery had transformed them from potential competitors for resources into partners in exploration. But the partnership had yielded other unexpected benefits. Human quantum computers, housed within Valaxian crystal matrices, had revolutionized space travel. The Valaxians' natural ability to process light through their crystalline forms, combined with human programming expertise, created navigation systems of unprecedented accuracy. General Martinez would have loved to see this, Dr. Chen said softly, remembering the recently retired general who had helped forge the initial alliance. He always said our differences would be our greatest strength. The general's words had proved prophetic. The combined human-Valaxian fleet had become legendary among spacefaring races. Valaxian ships, maintained by human nanotech, could weather solar storms that would destroy conventional vessels. Human exploration probes, protected by Valaxian crystal shields, ventured into regions of space previously thought impossible to survey. Speaking of differences, Axera's avatar created harmonics of excitement. The quantum transmission array is ready for its first test. Shall we make history again? The array represented their greatest joint achievement yet, a communication system that used Valaxian crystal technology to amplify and direct human-designed quantum entanglement signals. If it worked, it would allow instantaneous communication across vast distances, revolutionizing space exploration. As the test began, both species watched in anticipation. The massive crystal arrays, each precisely maintained by swarms of nanobots, began to glow with internal light. Quantum signals, channeled through crystalline matrices, reached across space in ways neither species could have achieved alone. The first signal came through clear as crystal. "Hello from Alpha Centauri," transmitted instantly across light years of space. The chamber erupted in celebration, human cheers mixing with Valaxian harmonic joy. But Dr. Chen noticed something else in that moment, something profound. In the virtual space, it had become impossible to tell where human technology ended and Valaxian began. They had created something entirely new together. "You know," she said to Axara, "when I was a child, I used to look up at the stars and wonder if we were alone. I never imagined we'd find friends who were so different from us." Axara's avatar pulsed with warm harmonics, "And I never imagined that beings I once thought too small to notice would teach my people so much about thinking big." As they watched the new Valaxian crystals grow under the careful attention of human nanobots, both leaders reflected on how far they'd come. Their partnership had proved that the true measure of advancement wasn't size or strength, but the wisdom to see past superficial differences and the courage to reach out to those who seemed alien. "So," Dr. Chen asked with a smile, "what impossible problem should we solve next?" Axara's response carried harmonics of adventure and friendship. "With our combined capabilities, I don't think impossible exists anymore." Around them, humans and Valaxians continued their work, each bringing their unique perspectives and abilities to their shared challenges. They had learned that in a universe full of wonders, sometimes the greatest discoveries came from looking past the obvious and seeing the potential in unexpected places. The stars stretched out before them, full of mysteries waiting to be solved by beings both large and small, working together in ways neither had imagined possible. After all, in the grand scheme of things, size really didn't matter. It was what you did with it that counted.